All right, this week we are continuing our discussion with what in the world are these different types of intimacies. And this week we're talking about spiritual intimacy on episode 244 of The Relaxed Male. This is The Relaxed Male, a show that comes to you each week helping men to remove the nice guy from their life so they can actually live their life on their terms. Join the host, certified coach Bryan Goodwin, as he helps men step out of their heads and become free from the thoughts that bind them. All right, we're continuing our discussion about what different types of intimacies there are. We've talked about emotional, we've talked about intellectual, and we're going through the list that Choose Therapy actually came up with of the 10 different types of spirit or of just regular, of just intimacies. There's the physical, the emotional, intellectual, spiritual, experiential, social, creative, conflict, aesthetic, and work. We have got, like I said, we've gone through 2 of them so far. We've talked about emotional intimacy. We've talked about intellectual intimacy, but now what is spiritual intimacy? And that one's a little different. It's a little harder to actually, it was a little difficult for me to understand. And I'm granted, this is all very surface level stuff that I'm talking about on here because, well, I'm just learning about that there were 10, these 10 different types of intimacies. And so here, there's going to be a lot of things that I'll probably get wrong. And because a lot of it is just, this is my initial reaction of reading about it, kind of gathering it, understanding, processing it, and seeing, is that really a true intimacy, like aesthetic intimacy? What the heck is that? I can't wait until we get down to that one. That one's a little ways down the road. But we've got some different types of intimacies. And so just kind of each week I'm breaking one down. And so now we're up to spiritual. So we're going to be talking about that. And spiritual intimacy, I kind of understand. It is basically, in a nutshell, talking about and understanding each other's spiritual journey. And we're all kind of go on one. Some people, they like to run around and say, well, I'm not religious, but I'm spiritual. Okay. If you want to look at it like that and it helps you sleep at night, go with it. I don't think you can really, be spiritual unless you're religious. You don't have to have a very organized religion, but you have your religion is a type of spirituality. And that's kind of how I look at it. And that's kind of what I look at when people say that, they're spiritual, but not religious. But at the same time, you have a sense of the bigger picture, the sense of the overall. And that's where that spirituality, this religious sensation comes from. And this is why so many people take religion so seriously. I mean, some take it to the nth degree of being serious, and you say something wrong about it and they completely lose their head, burn down buildings and everything else, while others, it is more of a personal, where it doesn't, anything that happens around them doesn't shake them from their ground belief. They can think the other people who disagree with what their religion is are fools, but at the same time, they're not going to completely lose their mind and go riot for the sake of that somebody did something that might be might be offensive. So, but when it comes to spirituality or even religious ideas and trying to get to know somebody's beliefs in that department, a lot of times we do stay very surface level. We don't dig very deep into what a person spiritually believes, if you want to, and we'll just go ahead and stick with the spiritual nomenclature instead of trying to bounce back and forth between religion and spiritual, because, well, my brain just doesn't want to work that way. So I did struggle with this topic, because you can have a good marriage, you can have a good relationship with another person and not have the same spiritual beliefs. I've had people, dated girls whose family one was a Baptist, the other was was in Church of Christ. and they made it work. They stayed married for, I think, like 60 something odd years, and had a good life with it. So when it comes to having spiritual intimacy, it's not necessarily important as much as, but at the same time, if you were to go and be on the same page, say you had two people who were very devout to being Baptist or Church of Christ or Methodist or whatever denomination, you have a stronger connection. You have, like my grandparents, they both were Southern Baptist, and they were very devout to their church and to each other. And I think that spiritual intimacy is one of those little extra keys. If you're struggling with having a good, solid intimacy in your relationship, that spiritual intimacy might be that very thing that you're struggling to connect with. When you both get onto a same page, you might find that things fall into place a lot better. Now, which side you go, guys go to the wife's side, or the wife goes to the guy's side. That's completely up to the couple themselves to decide. Or if they want to decide, never mind, we don't really need to have this, to look at this element of the intimacy. But still, a lot of people struggle. And so there are times where you have a spiritual belief that can really interfere with a marriage. And this is one reason why, before you even get married, it's actually a good thing to have very solid discussions about what is your beliefs. What are your beliefs? And come to understand what each other does believe and doesn't believe, and come to see why I don't believe this, or I do believe this. Why do you not believe in that very important thing that I do believe? And y'all have a good discussion and be able to accept the fact that not everybody's going to believe what you do. Not even everybody in your church, if you are going to a church, is going to believe the way you do. I go to a Baptist church, yet very few of the Baptists really believe in the grace theology that I like to believe, that God, and I'm not here to anyhow, not here to have a sermon or anything, but I have the belief that when Jesus died on the cross, he died on the cross and for all of our sins at that moment. And so we are always free from sin. And so does that mean that you always run around, you can go around and you can kill people and he'll forgive you? Well, technically, yeah, it does. But at the same time, you want to make God proud. You want to make Jesus proud. And so that's the fact that you want to be a good person. You want to, what you view a good person to be. That's the key. One of the key points, what you view a good person to be. So you have to, you're not going to go off and create havoc thinking that, I'm just going to, I'm free from all sins anyhow. So, so I can do what I want, because that's not quite how that, all the works, because still you want to be a good person. You want to be accepted. So anyhow, let's end a sermon. That's my sermon. That's all there is. So when it comes to spiritual intimacy, this is one thing. If you are struggling and you want to improve what, the level of intimacy you're having, how do you increase that spiritual intimacy? And that's one that a lot of people kind of struggle with, because if you are on two opposites of the sides, maybe you're one person's a Catholic, one person's a Protestant. It has happened. There's I think there's a famous headstone in England. Don't quote me on that, but somewhere in the world where there's a Protestant church, graveyard and a Catholic graveyard, and they're side by side, and the people want to be buried in their respective graveyards. So, but they were married. And so they actually had headstones built that had joining hands over the top of the wall that separated the Protestant side from the Catholic side. And so it's kind of it makes for a cute and beautiful story of how love can overcome even the lack of agreement with religion. But how did they get going? Because you can still have separate, two different churches, going to two different churches and still have spiritual intimacy. And how is that? Well, because you're respecting what their beliefs are. You don't sit there and denigrate them and beat them up for not believing what you believe, because these are all beliefs. And if you're not aware of, beliefs are nothing more than thoughts that we perceive to be true. I perceive that Christianity will get me into heaven, while at the same time, Islamists, they believe that their way of doing things is how you get into heaven. Catholics have a slightly different way on how you get to heaven. They're type of Christianity, but again, just slightly different. And so, are any of us right? Or all of us right? I mean, we're all Jewish, Islam, Christianity. We're all Abrahamic based religions. We all believe that there was this one dude named Abraham who had many sons, and many sons had Father Abraham. And, that whole story. So you have to be able to accept that your wife is going to have different sense of beliefs. And can you accept that she doesn't believe what you believe? You can still have discussions. You can be curious about what she believes and talk and come to understand all you want. But if you were to go through and to denigrate and to cut and to belittle a person because of what they believe, that's where you're going to get some problems. That's where all of a sudden spiritual intimacy becomes a very important aspect, because all of a sudden things are going to start falling apart because you're talking down about what your spouse believes in, and that what we believe in, spiritually speaking, is very important. I mean, we're talking about what happens to us after we die. Some people are very comfortable with the fact that, I die, I think I'm just going to blip out. I'm just going to blink and you be gone. And I get that. That might be kind of okay, but I would rather be reassured that, if I have a chance of going to someplace really nice, or someplace where there's nothing but eternal pain and suffering and horrible things going on, and horrible, ugly creatures and torture and all that going on, I'm going to hedge my bets and go ahead and say, I'm going to try to be the nice guy. I'm going to try going ahead and say, let's follow the teachings of Jesus Christ, because that at least sounds like it's going to get me up into a nicer place than the alternative. Now, if I blip out, I mean, which one am I losing? I'm not losing either one. All right. So that's kind of that's my logic in it. It's let's go ahead and let's be a good person. Besides, church is good for guys also, because it helps us to build that much needed community pillar that we're always lacking, especially these days, because not near as many people actually go to church anymore, which is actually sad. So, but one of the big things you want to make sure is that don't dismiss what your spouse believes. Okay. They believe what they believe. You don't need to scoff at it. You don't need to make fun of it. Just accept the fact that, hey, it's a different belief than what I have, and I'm okay with it. I would rather, if I don't understand, then ask a question, get to understanding why she believes that way. And that's one of the things you can do to actually increase your spiritual intimacy is, one, talk about your spiritual journey. Why do you believe what you believe? What was the journey that you went to get to that point? It may just be something. Well, I was in Sunday school, and they did a call for all kids who wanted to become saved, and I was like, all right, sure, let's do this. Everyone else is going up, and so you went up, and poof, voila, you become saved, and everybody has a good time. They celebrate somewhat, and then you go on about your day, and then you realize, oh, wait a minute, I kind of committed myself to something that I wasn't fully aware of, but I still agree with it. And so you may go through and recommit yourself or something along those lines. You tell your story and you hear what your wife tells, and you become understanding of where she came from and why she believes what she believes a lot more. And so, yeah, you have your spiritual journey, but as they're talking about the spiritual journey, the most crucial part of all of this is get curious, stay curious, come to understand why your wife feels the way she does. Why does she talk about about her life and her beliefs the way that she does? Why does she believe that, Church of Christ, why do you believe that no music in church is the way to go? While, you got your non-denominational that's got a 5-piece band jamming out during the church session. Well, we have our reasons. We have our understandings. We have, we also have our biases that creep in. We have a friend who's Church of Christ, and she talks about, I've asked her multiple times, why is it that y'all don't believe that you're supposed to play music? And it's like, well, because the music was created so that angels have a means to proclaim God's love. And I was like, yeah, but but in the hierarchy of things, we are actually higher than angels. So do we not have that right? And so these questions get asked. We get to talk and we get to come into understanding. And she asked, well, why do y'all worship John the Baptist? Why do Baptists worship John the Baptist more than they worship God? And I'm like, we mentioned John the Baptist like once, twice a year. I don't think we worship John the Baptist. I think it's just we put an emphasis on the dunking, if you will, and saying and going through and that whole death and rebirth that the baptism represents to us is just a ceremony, a bigger ceremony that we put more emphasis on, as opposed to, say, like the Methodists, because I think they just kind of spray you with some water, and that's their form of baptism. I've not ever been to a Methodist baptism, so I'm just kind of guessing here. But or you got your you got your what is it? The one the Orthodox the Orthodox Catholics who take the baby and dunk them, literally, dunk them in the water 4 or 5 times and voila. So, and they can be all terrifying to some of us and normal to others. And so when you start asking questions about it, you get to understand. The only way you're going to understand is when you express what you don't understand. Well, why do you do it that way? Well, I do it because this. Well, why is that the reason behind this? And so as you come to ask questions, you understand and you come to appreciate why your wife believes something different than what she does. And because y'all have these common discussions and because y'all go on a spiritual journey together, whether you believe in the same church theologies as others, that's beside the point. Because if y'all are on a spiritual journey together, she can believe one thing, you can believe something a little bit different, but still appreciate and understand and follow that they're on their own journey while standing right beside you. There's that beautiful little differentiation that happens. So you want to stay curious, especially through everything. Curiosity is actually, it may kill the cat, but it brings man and woman closer together. Brings that any couple, any relationship, the relationship you have in your band of brothers, the relationship with your family members, relationships with the folks that you have at work, they all become stronger connections because you're curious about them. You get them to talk about themselves and share who they are, and you become you have the ability to better understand them. And then somewhere along the way, it happens where you get to express your thoughts and your beliefs and your concerns and all those and your journey and your life story, and they get to understand you better. And even if they don't, that's cool. There's not really any necessary that it has to be a two-way street. As long as you're understanding, you're the one who gets to have the ability to have more compassion and more love for the person because you know who they are. a lot more. So you get to be on the journey. Now, some of the other ways that you can actually have a better connection is also find a way to serve and honor each other in that spiritual sense. So if there is a ritual that you like, that your wife likes to do, find a way of being able to partake in that ritual. Doesn't mean anything less to you. I mean, there might be some places, they require that you be a member of that church for you to partake in communion. Okay. So you may not be able to partake in communion with her, but there might be something else, like for Christmas. Maybe there is a special thing that happens during Christmas. So like midnight mass or midnight services, if you're a Protestant. So you decide you're going to go with her to midnight mass or midnight service. Okay, great. Some during Easter, I know a lot of churches like to do sunrise worships where they all go out and essentially they go out into a field and it's an open air, it's an open air church service. Beautiful because as they talk, the sun, and they're doing the service, the sun's rising, and it's a really beautiful service to experience if you've never had the chance to. The other one is just develop traditions of your own. It doesn't have to be that it's necessarily, we do a lot of this with Christmas, because everybody will have different little traditions that they've created because of Christmas. We have, some people believe you should only hang a star on the top of the tree. Other people may believe that you have a angel, or have Santa Claus, or or you have the nativity scene someplace, or there's, maybe you don't have Santa, or maybe you're one of those that has Krampus that comes through the day before, or whenever Krampus is supposed to come. And so maybe you go through and you terrorize your kids, on Christmas Eve, because, that's what you do for Krampus, or whenever it is Krampus is supposed to be tromping around and harassing kids with his antics. But these are all beautiful, wonderful beliefs. You can develop your own traditions, and especially when you two are married and brand new to the marriage department, man, you get all the fun. You get to be creative. You get to decide, hey, this is how we do Christmas. I like how you do Christmas. Let's bring that part into the family. I like this one. Okay. Cause like ours used to be, when I was growing up, it was always homemade chocolate chip cookies, but my wife makes some wicked no-bake chocolate cookies. And we all know what those are, but she doesn't just use regular peanut butter. We found some, and we got it by sheer accident. We got some honey roasted peanut butter and put those in there. And, oh my God, that was amazing. And so it became a crucial part of Christmas now to have these chocolate no-bake cookies with honey roasted peanut butter in it. And it is so much fun and so much nostalgia that gets mixed in there, because traditions are our direct link to our ancestors. And believe it or not, whether you want to accept it or not, you are your kid's ancestor. All right. You are actually getting old. And so you're able to bestow the knowledge and the stories and the traditions to your kids. Now, your kids going to hold all those traditions? No, because they're going on their own spiritual journey. So you get to understand and develop a spiritual intimacy with your kids at the same time. So as they develop their own opinions and thoughts and go on their own spiritual journey, they get to start having conversations with you and you with them. And it snowballs. And it becomes better and becomes more beautiful. And if you're wanting to have something like this, you can. If you're struggling with having with intimacy and you're wanting to know how to develop better skills with your loved one, with your wife, with your kids, with whoever, you can do that. And I can actually help you out. You can go to relaxedmale.com/coaching and be able to set up a time to go get coached. You can also just go to relaxedmale.com/lovebirds and set up a time where we can have a conversation. So if you are interested in that, please reach out. If you have a question or a comment or anything like that, you can also shoot me an email over at Bryan with a Y at relaxedmail.com. Love to hear from you. Love to talk with you. And, if you're looking to be able to listen to the show every week, you're able to do so by just going to relaxedmail.com/subscribe. And I've got a list of many different podcasting apps, a lot of podcasting 2.0 apps, which are the modern podcasting app. These allows you to listen to the show live, and from time to time, I actually go live with the show. I tried it today, and for whatever reason, I had a weird echo thingy where it was a delayed sound. So I would be talking, and as I talked, all of a sudden, the first thing that I said came back and was echoing back at me. So it was like, I can't do that one, because by the time we got finished talking, it would be such a cacophony of me just talking at different iterations of the conversation. It would have just been way too much. So, but you have that ability to be notified and listen on a podcast app live. If you want to say you've got, you're listening to one portion of the show and you're like, I'm not digging this, and you want to jump to the next chapter. There's chapters in podcasting 2.0. There's the ability to send, instant messages over to me and be able to get a response. I'd be able to receive it live and go, oh, okay. Yeah. And Bobby Joe 2024 went off and said, hey, what is this thing you're talking about? And I can respond to whatever it is that I'm talking about. Podcasting 2.0 apps are great, and I'm definitely taking podcasting to a whole new level. And if you ever have a chance to listen to one, something like through the Fountain app, or through Podcast Guru, those are two podcasting 2.0 apps that are great. If you're interested in listening to this show through Podcasting 2.0 app, you can go to podcasting2.org, and there you've got a list of apps that are available there. So guys, with that, I want to say thank you very much for listening. Y'all take care. We will see y'all next week. Till then, bye.